All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are here joining us right now, just adjusting a few things. We'll be ready to go. All right, starting in 3, 2, 1, and. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be going over spawns, awareness, and things of the like with Warlord SG. He is a previous pro that's calling right now, so let's get him on the line, and we're going to go over these things together. What is up, Mr. Warlord SG himself?
Yo, what's good? What's good?
It's good, man. How are you doing? How's everything going?
Not bad. Busy day of coaching today, actually, which has actually been like a lot of game time. I've had I've already had like 5 hours of actually more than that, like 6 hours of game time with like different people.
Busy day, busy day.
Yeah. So it's been good, you know.
That's
Keep
good,
myself
man.
busy, as they say.
That's good, man. I mean,
Ranking up all the Smurfs, you know, on the
all the
Smurf accounts.
Smurfs.
They
Yeah.
gotta get up there, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I've been ranking up my Smurf too, so I got it to 1580. So we're
Nice.
catching up. We're catching up to Warlord. The almighty 2000 is on its way. So
There.
we today I wanted to do a quick 30, like you said, 30-minute session of just a learning, kind of going over some stuff that the guys online want to know, and just in general, just general things that like awareness and spawns, kind of like what you had taught me before about how to look at spawns when teams playing. You could maybe take a VOD from one of my team games and kind of explain that again to give people,
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
including myself, how to do that. And I'm guessing more people want to know about Solitude than anything, because you already taught me roughly how to play Solitude, and I have one of that VOD already kind of out. But maybe understanding the spawns of Solitude and kind of how to block them, and how to, or at least how to initiate
Yeah,
a
sure.
good team play for
So
that.
instead of doing fader, you want me to like maybe share my screen and just like load up like a
Oh
map and
yeah,
kind of talk about that stuff?
yeah.
Would you like prefer that?
That sounds great. Yeah, I think that'll be even better variation of that.
Okay, yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, so let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and find your screen on Discord, and then we'll start from
Yeah,
there. Let me
yeah,
know
I'll
when you
share
share
it.
it, sir.
Um, there we go.
Okay, cool. All right, here we go. All right, it's full screen now. All right, I think. Can you talk real quick?
Yo.
Give me 1 second. Add your voice in here.
Um,
All right. All right. Talk one more time.
yo.
Oh yeah, it is a little different because it's not the. I got you. All right. Talk one more time.
Yo.
There you are. There he is. His voice is live. All right, let's check this out. All right, so today we're gonna go over Solitude, spawns, and things to knock out for that.
Yeah, exactly. Just general solitude stuff, spawns, all that good stuff, you know. Oh my god, there we go. Right. So I guess oh my god, I'm skipping everywhere. See my ping just going like crazy? Oh, there we go. It's stable. All right, so I guess the first thing to kind of talk about is just like, what should we start off with? Should we start off with just general spawn stuff or Solitude specific stuff? What do you
Yeah.
think?
Let's go general, and then we'll get a little bit more specific. So we'll start maybe the first 10 minutes. We'll kind of go over general Solitude, and then we'll go over spawns and kind of things like that. Whatever works for you.
All right, so this in general is always kind of important to kind of not look for like two things when you're kind of like coming off spawn, because like when you're coming off spawn, not just the location, but like the way you're facing can also kind of give you a good indication of where the enemy's at, right?
Right.
So, like if we broke this like down into a line, right? So we'd say like this is like right side because you're like looking out this way, and then here would be like middle, and then like yard or something, or like kind of around here facing this way would be left, right? So the most common thing would be, if you spawn like yard and you're like looking this way, they're kind of going to be off to your side, right? Because the most important thing is like the way you're facing is going to be like they're never really going to be in your reticle unless like the spawns are kind of like real messed up,
Right.
So like 9 times out of 10, you spawn, you're like looking this way, they're probably going to be off to your right or like come up the blue ramp or something, And then like vice versa, you spawn the right side and you're like looking this way, they're probably going to be like a lot of guys on your like gold ledge, yard, all that kind of stuff, Like top middle maybe, but they're always kind of off to the side you're not looking,
That makes sense.
And then if you get a middle spawn like this, it usually means like one of two things. It rather means they're on your left and right. So like you spawn in the middle, so they're like kind of pushing like LR, and they're also like pushing maybe like hotel. Or it could mean the opposite, where there's like kind of nobody on your left or right. They're just really far away. So like you could get this spawn, and they could all just be sitting back at like say sniper, And you can kind of use like small things to kind of indicate like to kind of rule out one or the other. So like for example, say if I got this spawn and I had like a teammate on like S4 posters, I could automatically rule out them being far away. So that would mean they're on my left and right, Or vice versa, if I got a middle spawn and I had a teammate like hotel or a teammate yard, then that would rule out that they're on my right. They're just really far away,
Right.
So you can kind of use like that factor to kind of, just kind of judge like what the middle spawn is, because usually it's one of the two, but there's like always like little hints that you can kind of use to determine which one it is, right?
Gotcha.
So I guess like the other thing that we were talking about, like like placement, I guess, but like the main thing this is important is like I was kind of saying it's like a line from like here to like yard, but that's like all assuming you're like facing this way, right? So the way you're facing like changes everything. So like right now, because I'm facing snipe, it's like super unlikely there's anybody snipe, right? But then it's more likely they're yard. But let's say I get the same spawn and I'm facing like this way, like yard. Now it means, alright, there's probably like nobody like immediately in yard. I mean, there could be a guy tram, because that's like kind of off to your side on your reticle. But it's like always super likely, say if I got like this spawn, for example, that they're probably on my like posters to snipe, Or something like that. And then, another example would be, same thing, if I got like a random like yard spawn, and then, I'm facing this way, it's super likely they're blue, but if I got the same spawn, I'm facing this way, it's a lot more likely they're, say, like soda steps to like tram or something,
Okay. So to clarify real quick, what you're saying is, if we're spawning in market, right, and we're looking towards snipe, then they're wherever we're looking in general, they're not gonna most likely be in that exact spot.
Yeah,
They'll be
exactly.
off the side, either left or right. But
Yeah.
okay. So
Exactly.
So like, if you give another example, but you said from market all the way to yard, is there's a line basically that tells you they're going to be on this side of the map that you're currently on right now. So basically that's where they would more than likely be.
Yeah.
And what would your play call be like? And that's a big thing. A lot of people, they could be like, oh, I understand spawns, like I can think like, okay, they're across the map from where my reticle's placed when I spawn. But what do you do in that position? And we've kind of talked about this before, but I don't mind reiterating it a little bit, because it tends to be super important to even for me, of what to do first, like at a step-by-step basis. So say you spawn here, right where you're at, or maybe let's make it a little bit more specific, because usually people are taking over tower. Tower is usually not free on this map. So let's pretend you're looking to the side, right, and you're not looking at sniper. Like you spawn right where you're at.
So generally speaking, I'd say like 9 times out of 10, you do want to go back to yard when you get this spawn, because it's just like going down. I always call this ramp like a death ramp, like you're just gonna get like absolutely shredded. There's like a couple times going down this ramp is good. One will be if you already have a teammate at snipe, like S4, so he can kind of cover you and you're like pushing to help him kind of thing. If you don't have any teammates at snipe, it's usually a bad idea. What I would say is if you did get this spawn and you were looking yard, that definitely means like you should just kind of go yard, because that kind of is letting you know there's not many people there, right? Because you're kind of looking at it, so you can like quickly get back into yard, But let's say you get like this spawn, and say you've already let's say you got like this spawn, and you're like looking at snipe. I mean, sometimes you should still go back to yard even if they have a bunch of people there, but like you can definitely get a bit more creative if you're like looking like directly at snipe off this spawn. Because that could make you want to go like, like say if it's strongholds, you could just go down the ramp and go and like just be like direct into bottom mid and into the hill and start like scrapping on the hill,
Right.
I think because I much prefer going down the ramp and fighting bottom than just going all the way around like this, because you do definitely get shot a lot. But like I said, you can sometimes do that,
Right. And again, just for the people, because it looks like more viewers are coming in. If you missed the first part, Stuart was explaining that, or Stu is his name, Warlord's name, is that when you're looking towards the spawn, so like go back to the initial spot, if you're looking at sniper, then not all the time, but a lot of times they're not going to be directly where your reticle's placed, right? They'll be slightly off to the side. And then if we're looking towards yard, guess what? In yard, they're probably not in yard. They might be in back tram where loop is kind of located. But it does indicate that you're a little bit more freer to go that way where your reticle's placed. So the play he's saying about going down this death ramp is what he's calling it, is only 1 out of 10 times when you're probably looking down sniper lane already, because it's technically to a certain extent at that moment free. And then going not straight down to truck, but going through mid, below the bridge, is the most, I wouldn't say efficacious play, but a better play more of the time if you're running straight to play B for like strongholds or bottom mid hill or something like that. Again,
yeah, exactly.
But again, most of the time he was saying 9 out of 10 times if you spawn here on Solitude in this area, you still want to go for yard, which is to your left. If you don't know the callouts, it would be the A strongholds.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then
So,
what
like,
would be the next step? Go ahead.
So real quick, there's one more thing I'd say about like the spawn thing. So we're kind of talking about like, if you're like looking this way, it's gonna mean they're like probably snipe, and if you're like looking this way, it means they're yard. Sometimes you're gonna get these kind of weird like reticle placements where like you're just gonna spawn looking at this, and it's kind of telling you like a bit of both, right? Like it's kind of saying like, oh, my reticle's not all the way over here, but it's also not all the way over here.
Gotcha.
What this will mean, like, almost view that, so it's like your reticle isn't like telling you a lot because it's kind of in between, so it's kind of telling you they could be on your left and right. So like what you start doing then, like when your reticle's in between, this is a bit complicated, but what you want to start doing in these kind of situations is like kind of look at your positioning more, right? So like here you're kind of like naturally on the right side of blue. So if I had to like guess like where they would be off like a spawn like this, I'd probably say like, all right, they're kind of like pinched from both angles, right? They're like kind of like yard and maybe like S1 or something, right?
Okay.
So like it's one of those where like if your reticle's looking this way, you're kind of looking at light rifle in the weird way, right? So it's almost like less likely they're light rifle, and it's more likely they're kind of off to the sides, right?
Okay, gotcha.
So like just viewing that like reticle as like almost like a kind of deterrent of like where they're gonna be, So it's like one of those things where it's like, if I'm like looking at, like say if I get this spawn, so like I was saying, like we were kind of just talking about, I'm pretty much always going to go back to yard unless maybe sometimes I'm like, I get this exact spawn and I'm looking directly at the sniper.
Right.
But if it's like a spawn like this or like this or like this, it's like pretty much I'm always going yard, because it's kind of telling me like they're not like there's at least like one guy snipe, and if it's like here they're probably like not light rifle, but they might already be in yard. But there's never going to be like 4 people like in yard, right? If I go like this, but like that could be a possibility if I get like this spawn,
Right. Yeah. Most of the time, a lot of people are at the tower anyway. The tower's not free usually, but usually people don't like playing in yard for whatever reason. At least for right now, the meta seems like in the Onyx lobbies, people just play tower most of the time. And some people really play the ledge here. But going back to the point you spawned there, what's the next step? You get into yard, and what do you do? I know you said last time that to clear out tram area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because like the thing is like, you want to get out of blue fast just because it's like a real position that like the enemy is going to play to trap you in. So like let's say like what teams will do is they'll like there's 2 places you really don't want to spawn this map like as a team, and it's S1 and blue, right? Because they can get you in some really nasty spawn traps.
Yeah,
so like you're just kind of yeah. So you just want to like get out of here kind of fast, right? So like they don't. So like you just want to like get into yard, like try to get some trades. Obviously the frost spawns, which is really nice in yard. And then once you have yard control, you kind of want to have like 1 or 2 guys kind of hold yard / yellow ledge. So like one guy can maybe stay here, another guy kind of like shooting light rifle, like shooting blue, just kind of getting damage. And then you want to have 1 or 2 guys kind of get to these tram angles, right? Because what you'll see a lot of like good teams do is they'll kind of get that one guy like yellow ledge, and then they'll have like maybe another guy kind of like playing like the tunnel area, like where he's like half like watching the blue flank. Then you can also like come out here to get shots.
Right.
And then like another guy will go somewhere like here, so he can kind of shoot snipe, shoot blue window, watch dip. And then the 4th guy will usually kind of go like along this wall on loop, right? And he'll kind of like watch dip, get shots, and he can kind of respond to any damage, right? So if people are calling out weak guys snipe, this guy from over there can like jump to there, and then like you can like just jump up posters to get the cleanups. Or if they're calling out like a bunch of weak guys in dip, you can just kind of like come out, like you can almost like skip the guys on snipe, like slide and just like try like wrap to your teammate like yellow ledge and like really try like get these like cleanups around like dip or whatever.
Gotcha. So I want to say the main person, but outside of the person on top ledge, or whatever anybody wants to call it, loop, and then the light rifle, the glass area that you just passed. The light rifle guy's kind of the X factor in this. He's the one that can literally move out of position back and forth because he's covering the guy on top ledge as well as
you'll see that a lot with like a lot of setups and a lot of maps where it's almost kind of like a 2 like 1-1 kind of split with like the one in the middle being like what you call like a bit of like a flex player, so like you can kind of go and help like whoever needs help. So like usually like what I'm saying is like you'll have like 2 guys who play kind of close because they're usually like the kind of like I guess you could say like the kind of forceful like push, like it's gonna be often them who are like facing the enemies, like kind of running into pre-aims and like playing for damage, right?
Right.
And then you'll have that one guy just who's sat really far back on like kind of playing for himself in a weird way, but kind of playing for damage. Like this guy here needs to be scared of his blue flank, but he also wants to kind of output some damage. And then like the guy in the mid lane is all like a lot of the time, who's kind of stuck in between them, is going to be the kind of like the flex player, like which means he's like flexible, like he can like help these guys if they need help. So he can just like like if these guys are fighting up Soda, he could just like he could just get involved and help them. You could also like if these guys go like loop to like here, he could also just like like just like jump up here and like kind of help like shoot dip or whatever, and he can like get to this guy. So I mean, because these are like the kind of general spots you kind of want to get to and like push, like and make a push. Because something you'll see a lot in like low lobbies is people just kind of they don't play for their damage enough when they have control these positions. Right. They just kind of like don't see anybody and just be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like go up here, see.
Just find somebody.
Yeah, that's like I mean that. Yeah, exactly. When it's on reality, it's like if you have like control of this and this, you've got like a really good setup in a way. Because also like you have eyes, like because you gotta think, right, the only thing that you don't like have like great positioning for is the snipe, but in reality you control all the thrusts if you control this side of the map. You have the best angles, like if you're forcing S1 spawns or like even like these blue spawns over here, like you're spawning them away from the quantum, the thrust, like all these other like sandboxy things like stickies or whatever, and like fucking. So it's like you can definitely like kind of hold this, and you'll see like teams kind of hold this almost like 2-cap in strongholds quite well, as well as like just in Slayer, teams will really slow it down and kind of hold that, Like I feel like a lot of people really overestimate Nest. It's really good, don't get me wrong, but it's really easy sometimes to like almost trap yourselves in Nest, Because like what you'll see sometimes is like say like that setup was working, right, and let's say like let's say you had him. Because like, so say like we were kind of talking about like we had that setup, right? So you had the guy like Gold Ledge and you had the guy here. And let's say shit goes well, like let's say you like as a team you collectively go, alright, let's focus blue, and like these guys kind of cut across, maybe one guy kind of stands back here to block the spawns, but then like the guy Gold and Yard like fight blue, and then the guy Light Rifle might drop to help. And then you like kill those guys out blue. Then you're like, then once you do that, you're like blocking blue, you're blocking Gold, you're blocking Tram, and then you've got them in that nasty like S1 spawn trap, right?
Yeah.
And like so like wherever they go, they're just fucked because like if they go bottom, you're alone.
And I think I know people.
It's more, yeah. I mean, it's just like a C. Yeah, it's just like a C shape, right? Like you're just all around from like blue all the way to like here, and you've just got trapped in that like S1 spawn,
Yeah, because if you push past like this light rifle box right here, especially or the glass area, the guy on the left and loop area, if those two push even like to right here where posters at, they could spawn in Tram, right? Behind them.
Yeah, exactly. So like once you can push up like this far, they're gonna start spawning behind you. So like you've almost got to go like with like if you're going like, because you'll see this a lot. That's why I always say about like a lot of pros. It's like you don't want to be like doing these kind of weird like I'm just kind of casually walking forward. Like I always say, like a lot of pros play like rather really slow or really fast, right? And the reason is because of spawns, because like they want to like kind of control spawns in like a passive way and kind of play for damage. And then when they go, they're almost saying like, yeah, I'm opening up this spawn. So like if I'm opening up this spawn, that means I want to get control of like another area real fast, so I block that spawn, right? You don't want to get like caught in like the mid ground, if that makes sense, where like you're not really blocking anything and you're just kind of like floating, if that makes sense,
Gotcha. You're not just flying, the term is flying by the seat of your pants. You don't want to just kind of randomly, just lackadaisically just decide, oh, I'm going to just go fight this guy. It's more like I'm fighting this guy, but at the same time I'm releasing an area.
Everything should have a bit of purpose,
Yeah, because as well as your position, not just kills, right? Even if it's Slayer or whatnot, or even Strongholds, doesn't matter. It's like, what are you releasing at the time? What are you gaining and losing at the same time? Because you're going to be doing that every single kill, every single movement that you do on this game. you lose a spawn or you gain a spawn, you know, or you get a kill, or if you die, worst case scenario, what did you just do for your whole team, right? Because we all know that. I mean, you really know when you're playing, you know, like when you're at relay, you know, when you're in HCS relay, like just
Yeah.
dying one time can make the other team super aggro, and they could take advantage of the fact that you're dead or another teammate of yours is dead, and then that
Yeah.
changes the entire game, and y'all lose, or vice versa. They do the same thing. They get a little too aggro, they get a little too excitable, and then that loses the game. And I know
Yeah.
everybody in this chat, including myself, constantly. We have games where we were winning by 100 points of strongholds in one play that one guy did because he felt fucking good or something that time. He doesn't get the kill, or he gets shot by 3 people because he wanted to fly to another team against the team to get a kill for whatever reason, to stat if you want to call it that, and then they lose the game because of that one play. And you could say, oh well, something else could have happened, but it's obvious a lot of times when we know when one play ruins the game, right? So
Yeah.
when we're playing spawns and we're doing all this, and everybody in the chat, if y'all want to ask any questions, y'all can. We have to remember that yes, kills are important, but is that kill worth you dying and worth you losing position for the win of the game? Because isn't that what we want, is higher CSR? Maybe, I mean, some people don't care about CSR, they just want to kill people. I mean, I guess, you know, but at the end of the day, we all want to win and we all hate losing. So that's kind of why I want to ask you questions on this. So going back to the facts, sorry, we kind of got long-winded.
You good?
The on the C side, right? Because I know you said we could trap ourselves in nest. Can we? Is there a position, not necessarily to break out of it, but that you can optimize this side for everybody so they can kind of understand what's good about the C side as opposed to just having the sniper? So you said A side, which is yard side, has the thrust, it has the sandboxy stuff and decent.
Yeah, it's just
pretty
real
position.
good. It's just real good because, like I was saying, like once you get, what I was saying before, like once you get the kills, like blue, you could like play to trap and nest, or vice versa. If you like almost like push up this way, like say like you send like 2 guys forward, the guy who was LR like transitions to like here, and then like the guy maybe stays like yellow ledge, or he could even back up to like yard BR, and then you can like kind of play to trap them in blue like over here, right? You know. So it's like you could have like one guy here, one guy light rifle or slash tram kind of blocking that spawn. Then you'd probably have like another guy like you'd have like, so like one guy light rifle, one guy snipe. Then you could have like, honestly it doesn't really matter as long as then you could just have like one guy maybe here and then like another guy gold ledge, you know, because like this guy can like kind of shoot like this, and he can also like drop down to kind of like watch like OEs like this way, and like watch like random like rogue plays that like dip and stuff, you know. So
yeah, actually, I never would have thought about this, and that's kind of crazy. I never would have thought about this setup. So this, you said sniper, LR, top ledge, and then that kind of moving around guy is now the guy in the back.
yeah,
I
and that's like a real good setup you can do. There's like some sweatier setups you can do, but like it's like anything, it's easier to mess up spawns. Like something I've seen some teams do, which is like super nasty, but it's like so hard to like execute, is they'll have like kind of what we're talking about, where this is hard to do, but there's like one setup you can do where it's like you'll have like the guy tram, and you have the guy yard like this, then you'll have, so like you have like a guy tram, a guy yellow ledge, a guy blue, alright? So now you're blocking everything but S1, so it's like the setup we were talking about before, right? But instead of having the guy, like, let's say, like, kind of LR, right? Like, let's say, if he could get to, like, this exact position, it's very hard to pull off, but you want to be careful with it. It's like, if he could get to, like, S4, and kind of, like, as they're all spawning up, he's kind of, like, looking away, he's not, like, doing this.
Oh shit, he has to look away.
Yeah. So, like, if you, like, get up here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna force the S1 spawns, right? And he can just literally like, so like when they're free dead, he can just be like this, just hold the scoreboard, and then they spawn up, and then you turn around like that, and then they're gonna spawn S1, and now they're like ultra fucked because they're all just gonna spawn down there.
So
like
that just tells you, like, chat, that's like tells you the power of spawns right there. Like knowing spawn control, and I know some people are gonna be like, well, I don't have a team, and how do I play without a team? But if you do have a team, and this is like competitive Halo Hub is what we went to, so a lot of people maybe want to be in a team or looking to be in a team, and y'all can find each other in the chat. But in general, like, this just shows you how important spawns can be. I mean, setting everybody up S1 while somebody's on S4 seems like it shouldn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Like that shouldn't be possible on this kind of game.
oh
You
yeah,
know?
it can definitely happen because I was playing against Squadron, and they got me in that nasty spawn trap, and I was like, oh my god, this spawn trap is ridiculous. I was like, I didn't
Yeah.
even know you could do that, and then I saw him do it, and I was like, oh, I'm stealing that. Like,
Yeah, and I think, and I think that's ridiculous. So again, could you go over that one more time? Because I think, of course, like you said, it's hard to execute because again, you need
like
precise.
everything
Yeah.
has to be going like real perfect. But
Okay.
yeah, it's like yeah. So think of it as almost like the cherry on the top setup, right? So like, well, you
Okay.
know how before we were saying like like let's say hypothetically you had like tram control, and then you happen to get the kills in blue, right? So now you've kind of got this kind of C shape from like LR. You know, like what you might want to do is like let's say they're like free dead, and you've held the setup for a little bit. You got like blue here. It's like what you'll do is like one guy will just go like this, right? He'll just go boom. Like the LR guy, right? He'll just go like this and just kind of jump up like this as they're spawning up, and then like as they've all spawned, then he goes like that, and he can like watch the lift and stuff like that,
Gotcha. And
There's like it's like this guy's the kind of transition guy, but it's really important like for you to do it. It's like if any of the other three leave their spots, so they're just gonna spawn there. It's like if this guy kind of walks up forward, like they're just gonna spawn there. If the blue guy randomly starts going hotel, they're gonna spawn blue, and if like the yard guy let's drop like randomly went like if he just like randomly just say drop dip, they're just gonna spawn yard, So it's
so
everybody has to like make sure, like
so
maybe even the yard guy has to like kind of look behind him just a little bit as well, just to like cement that spawn as
because
well,
even where you're looking, right, is gonna also deter where they're gonna spawn. So like if
Yeah,
you're looking at
exactly,
yeah, and that's a
exactly.
big thing people don't understand either is like the looking of your reticle changes the spawn as well. So
Yeah, it's
that's
massive in this game. It's massive. Like where you're looking, just like how we are talking about earlier, like when you're coming off spawn, it's like they're never gonna be in your reticle. I mean, it's happened to us on occasion, and we're like, what the fuck? But like most of the time, it's not gonna spawn you into like you instantly being looked at and getting melted. Like you're actually, believe it or not, like sometimes it'll feel like that, but that's because you've walked and took a couple steps. Like there'll be like crazy times when you're under like max pressure, where like, let's say I'm getting like constantly collapsed on, I get this spawn. Like I'm just instantly like shit, they're on my light rifle, because I
yeah,
know like I'm looking blue, they're not there. I'm like shit, turn. But it's
yeah,
like some like newbie players will just be like spawn, just walk forward for like 4 seconds for no reason, and then they get lasered in the back. They're like, dude, I just got spawn killed. But it's like if you want to be like super like nitpicky and critical, it's like the game was like kind of telling you that they're gonna be light rifle,
yeah,
So like
yeah.
you should have just insta spawned them and like boom, like as opposed to kind of like spawn randomly zoom in, like start walking like a bot,
Yeah. So big takeaway from this outside of the checkmate style spawns there. We're getting against Quadrant, and this was more recent, obviously, right? I don't know if you're playing with your team on like scrims and stuff with them, but the
Yeah.
main thing to learn from the spawning is that where you're looking is more than likely where they're not at. They could be to your
Yeah.
left or to your right depending on where you're spawning, and the opposite side of the map where you're looking is probably again where they're at or where they're not at, where they're not at, right? Or how does it
Yeah,
work?
yeah. So I mean, they're always going to be like not where your reticle is like the simplest version, right? Like they're not going to be like on your like reticle. I mean, the only time like sometimes they will be in a sense, like I said, if you get this kind of middle spawn, so like middle of like
Yeah.
somewhere like this, where it's like not far right or far left.
Yep.
Like if you get like this spawn, it means one of two things, right? It means they're on your left and right, or it means they're really far away, which would in a sense kind of be in your reticle. Like if there was all like back S2 to like
Yeah.
posters.
Makes sense.
So, but that's like the only time they'll really like be in your reticle.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay. And then last thing I'll ask is on the again going into like the C side, what's a good setup for the C side? Because I feel like I've played a couple games where I've had people do it pretty well, and my team does it pretty well. We'll have somebody in C plat, somebody at posters, and then one person running around truck, and then one person in market, kind of taking the sticky nades and covering the door. Like, what's the setup on this side? Maybe either to break out to take over the tramp side setup, or to just in general, just a setup. What would you say?
I think the best setup would be like a kind of LR snipe hold, where you'd have like one guy S4/S2, another guy kind of running around like top middle the posters, like kind of playing this angle, like jumping up on the box, shooting them.
Okay.
Then you'd have like, you'd almost kind of want to like have that almost like trap. The best like case scenario is like you've got them hard trapped in blue and you're like pre-aiming the doorway, right? So you'd have like one guy snipe, one guy top middle, like who's like kind of shooting them as they're like, because you're forcing like that spawn, and then they're like coming back into blue. You have the guy back tram who's kind of blocking the spawns, and the back tram guy will kind of go to your BR like this. And from here again, you can like watch any like random like bullshit flanks, but you also can pre-aim the door. And then you have the guy light rifle, who kind of like does the same thing. He can watch if anyone kind of OEs like down the death ramp as I call it. But you kind of already have the guy top middle who can watch that as well. And then obviously this guy can just go like this and help with yard, right? So you're kind of baiting the yard push. So that's like the god. That's like the god like nest and tram setup. Like you kind of like how we're talking about trapping MS1. Now you've kind of got them trapped in blue. So yeah, that's kind of like the best setup you can get.
Got
Like
it.
sometimes you just kind of gotta do what you can, like with as much space as you have. Like sometimes you're just not gonna be able to beat them to
Right.
yard. So sometimes you're just gonna have to settle for almost kind of a midi setup of like two snipe and then kind of like like 2 or 3 guys like kind of fight, just kind of holding this until you can get some nice damage and you can like pressure it. You know?
Gotcha.
But like the kind of end game is like you're just kind of playing to like trap them in blue, right?
Got it.
And like you'll see some teams like where it looks like they're playing like perfect Halo, right? So like we're saying, like they'll kind of go like snipe to here and then they'll trap in blue, and then like the 2 guys will push into yard, they'll average them, and they're like fuck it, like then like the guys snipe, like leave snipe open, they push blue, one
Okay.
guy stays tram, and then you kill the last 2 guys out of blue, and since that guy left snipe, he's now opened up the S1 spawn. So now you're like you transition from like having him trap blue, and now the next life they're getting trapped on the S1 spawn. You know,
Got it.
so
Got
it's
it.
like you kind of open up spawns that are real smart, you know, and like stuff like that. So it's like 1 minute you trap in blue, next minute it's one, blah, all that kind of stuff. So,
Right. Okay. So
um,
I got some questions from the chat now. They're saying that I have like a double. They hear me double, so hopefully I can't see it on my end. I'll fix it on the secondary end after the thing's gone. But I have a
yeah,
question, a couple questions. I have like 4 questions. That's cool with you to go through, see if we can knock them out like a minute each.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so we got one from I think it's Aristo G. Aristo is that's correct. Aristo G or Aristo SG. You know Stuart Graham. Aristo Stuart. Nah, he says a bit of an echo. Okay, so he said a bit of an echo going on. That's thanks for that. The next one is Zombie IDC. Like I don't care. Does reticle or zoom affect spawns? I.e., for example, zoom on tower out to B with sniper on live fire. Like if you're looking at live fire, like you're on top tower with sniper and you're looking straight at B.
Yes, it's huge. Yeah, that's huge. Like you're definitely probably gonna block that. Like
Okay.
you're definitely gonna block that. You want to kind of get in the habit, like sometimes of like let's say, let's say you think like if you want them to spawn somewhere, you want to like try practice, kind of having that timing. Sometimes pressing the back button. So like let's say, like we are talking about before, right? It definitely depends sometimes if like a wall's in the way. So like what you can do sometimes is like say if I wanted to force the S1 spawn and I was the tram guy, what I would make sure I do is I just kind of like look like this, and then the second I see want them spawn up, I just go boom, pre-aim. It's like you kind of like want to look away, you know, and kind of like practice the timing. You don't want to like hard look at something, you know, because like if you hard like pre-aim, if you pre-aim a spawn, you're probably gonna block it unless you you have to have like the most ridiculous like spawn trap of all time. Because
Gotcha.
if you all like block spawns, it's gonna be a lot more random. So you want to like look away from spawns, like because
And that's why
I'll
I was
open
just
them up.
gotcha. That's why you're saying that S4 God setup on here, if you want to call it that. You're literally looking away from S1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we were saying, like the S4 guy would like look away because if you look at it, it would block it. You
Okay.
know. So
And then holding the back button, a lot of people don't realize. I do this all the time. You'll see a lot of pros on their streams. You might not realize it, but they'll press it really quick, like how Stewart's did,
yeah.
just to see okay how many people are up, you know. And it'll tell you where probably where they're
Sometimes
spawning.
it's like if like honestly like if I've got them like fat 4 dead and we're like all in position to get the spawn trap going, I'll just have it down until I see the first spawner. You know.
Got it.
Like if I'm already in like a really good spot like this, like for example, and they're 4 dead, I just hold it until I see the first spawner, and then I'm like, all right, like now I know he's not going to be there. You know.
Got it. Okay.
Kind of thing, you know. So
Alright.
like you're saying, say if you were like top tower, with on live fire of a snipe, I'd like kind of hold it back. I'll be like just kind of looking at the wall like this, you know, like on the kind of the back ramp. And then the second I see like they're spawning green, I just instantly go, or like I'm looking at the wall, I'll be like, the second they spawn, I just go boom. Then I'm on the stairs looking at green,
Got it.
and then you can like spawn trap them like almost instantly,
Got
you
it.
know.
Well, thank you for that answer, Zombie. Thank you for the question, and thank you, Ghost, for kind of going over it. Pitt seems to be an exception to this rule. It's from Aristo SG, your brother in crime. I swear I've seen people spawn S1 while I'm sitting S2 and looking straight down at them.
The thing about Pit is that you have to remember is on a lot of these maps, you can almost kind of break it down into like 4 sides, right? Like they could spawn all across like 4 lines, right? Like they can spawn tram to nest, they can spawn nest to like top blue and like that line, and then they can spawn like, you know, like on this game, right? Like they could spawn hotel to yard, they could spawn like yard to tram, right? So there's like kind of like it's almost like a bit more of a square, right? But then you look at Pit, it's like people don't spawn long haul or runway really, right? Like they just kind of spawn S1, flag. Or like
Got you.
sometimes they'll spawn sword, right? So the thing is, it's like on Pit you naturally have less options.
Right.
So like sometimes it's gonna run out of options and it will spawn them in your reticle, you know.
Gotcha.
But not necessarily in your reticle, but like you just want to get clever with it. So like hypothetically, if you had one teammate their flag, one teammate their mauler, and one teammate there S2, whoever is not looking the hardest at the spawn next to him is probably the spawn they're going to get, you know.
Oh
And
wow.
most of the
Okay.
time, most of the time, it is going to be the S1 spawn, unless you're literally stood S2 staring at S1. But even then, sometimes the spawns will be so fucked they'll literally just spawn on you. But there is some weird situations where it's super rare, but like the game will start spawning you like sort of like in like bottom runway, like but and that's if everything's like super blocked, you know. But yeah, it's just like pit naturally is he's kind of correct. Like it is definitely a bit of an exception, but it's not. It's just mainly an exception, but it's because it's easier on that map to block everything than it is on every other map.
Got it. And
You
that's
know?
why sometimes when I'm running the flag, and I bet people in the chat will remember this, like in general for themselves, is you could run into their flag, grab their flag, and have like their tower, not their tower, not even in their tower. You could be in their sword maybe, and then maybe in their green, and even somebody near their long haul. They'll spawn Mauler. They'll spawn next to you as you like grab their flag. And I've had people
Yeah.
spawn in their what is it, needles for some people, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you really want to get a fuck out away from tower when you're about to run the flag. You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. You don't even
you
want to
shouldn't
get
really have.
yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, I'd just say like if you have anyone low side, you shouldn't even be like past like kind of like the banana like mid bridge. You know,
Yeah,
you should just
you
be
should be in
stay.
the
You should
training.
like kind of what we were talking about before, where like the good thing about sitting like on that but like kind of like training banana thing, right? Is like you're kind of looking at the wall, and then like as they are spawning up, you like kind of then you peek S1, right? So you're not like just hard staring it the whole time, blocking it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
then
like if you had like you know let's say you had like three teammates high, like one guy running it, one there long, and then maybe a random guy in green. You know, like say if you just randomly start just flying into their sword, chilling us one, you're probably gonna fuck the spawns up and give them like a mauler spawn, or even, or maybe like even like a bottom like runway spawn, which is like a really good like OE spawn, right? But if you kind of sit back like mid bridge, then you're also like blocking that runway spawn, which is like a rare one, but it does happen. And then you're also kind of like you know like if you're not staring straight at the S1 spawn, you're just gonna make it so they're gonna spawn there like every time, you know.
makes sense.
And also, what might happen sometimes is like, yeah, like because they're gonna start because if you just stare at the S1 spawn, they're just gonna start getting like flag spawns, maybe even like a cut spawn, you know. So you definitely want to like not stare at that like too hard, you know.
Gotcha. And then last question from Zombie, I don't care, or IDC. How do teams get split spawns running with 2 and 2? Is that where they press one side to the other and traverse the map fast? Kind of get what that's asking, or do you want me to say it again?
So like, I mean, does he mean like how to force split spawns?
Yeah, he says, I'll say it one more time, and then Zombie, if you're still here, could reiterate, maybe say it a little bit differently. But I'm going to say it like how you put it. How do teams get split spawns running with 2 and 2? So, two, I
So
guess,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like two sets. I mean, the thing about 2 and 2 is like I guess like I'll give like a since it's quite a general question, I'll give like more of a general answer, I guess. Um, is generally like running 2 and 2 isn't like great thing to do like to manipulate spawns. You'll kind of see a lot of teams kind of operate in what I'd call like almost like a 3-1, where like they have like one guy kind of anchor a spawn as the other three like push something out. Like for example, like let's say it's like let's say like a common example. Let's say it's like you're playing live fire strongholds and you all spawn like C, right? And then the other team's got an A B set up. Let's say you did a 2-2 like this guy's saying, right? So you sent two guys like this hypothetically. You sent two guys to A, two guys to B, right?
He's okay. So that he's asking. You can kind of go off on this, so we can go off of this. But he's also just to clarify. He says, "Yep. How do we force split spawns?" Is what he's asking. Like technically,
Okay.
but maybe not with the
I
2-2.
mean,
Maybe in general, just how to force split spawns.
okay, how to force split spawn. So, I mean, it's one of them where it's very easy to force split spawns because everyone forces split spawns on accident all the damn time in matchmaking. Like the main thing about split spawns is like you want to make sure if you're forcing split spawns, you're like you can still collapse on the splits, right? So there's like a million different ways you can do it. Like you know, like that's like I was saying, you're all tower. Because there's some force like this is a good example. So there's some times like forcing split spawns is bad, right? So let's saying like you know they're two dead. Like let's say you just got done in it with a fight at C. You're all four alive and you killed two of them, right? And the last two guys are like, let's say like back, like you get a call out like, they're all like garage and like A, right, or something like that, or like they're B and like A, like the last two. So then the two guys top C just bomb it top middle to A, and then the other two just bomb it to like nest to green. So like you collapse in the last two, but now you've spawned the last two tower, right? And the problem with you split spawning them there is there's no way that you can all physically turn around in time to like kill the other two, you know. So like you've kind of like just because you push those guys in A so hard, it's like you've almost like that's like a bad forcing a split spawns, right? Because you've spawned the main, you've pushed it, and then you spawn the other two tower, which is like one a really good position, and where it was going to be like super hard to kill them, right? Like you'll see that a lot on like streets where like you'll push the A guys and they spawn C, but you can't like physically turn around in time to collapse on them, right? So like what you want to do is like you want to make sure like when you're pushing, you're putting yourself in positions to where you can like kill the split spawners easily, right? So let's say like we were saying, instead of doing that kind of 2-2 push, you might have like one guy kind of sit back at like nest or something, right?
Okay.
So instead of like both the guys going nest to green to big door, you might do a push like let's say 2 top middle, and then one guy goes like green, and then the other guy stays like nest, right? So as those two guys are fighting, who are going top middle to A, are fighting the guys in green. As the two guys that go top middle to A are like fighting the guys in A, obviously they're blocking that spawn by fighting them. The guy pushing green to big door is blocking the green spawn. So then having that one guy back kind of anchoring at nest, what he's gonna think is like, all right, the other two are gonna spawn dummies, and now he's in a really good position to just insta turn around and like start putting pressure on the split spawners, right? So I think that's like the most important thing is that when you're forcing split spawns, you almost kind of want this one guy kind of, well, you know, you can have like three guys almost focused on killing the two, and then that one guy, his main job is just kind of thinking about those split spawners, right? Like he's anchoring the position to block a spawn, and he's getting ready to like shoot the split spawners as they come up, right? Because if all four of you push, like you're just never gonna be able to kill the split spawners, right?
Got
You
it.
know?
Yeah, the guys are saying zombie goes, okay, so better to bomb to A while at least leaving one, right? One person.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
both
Yeah,
back
because
or
if
both
every
back C and then collapse on B,
if
yeah.
everybody just holds forward, they're just gonna spawn behind you, and then you don't gain anything off it.
Yeah.
Like think of it as like this: like a lot of Halo maps have like almost like four corners, right? I mean, just like where like you just spawn them in like let's imagine like every Halo map's like a square because it kind of is in a way, right? It's like you kind of like let's say like you have like control of like one side of the map, which is like the bottom left and right square. If you all just push, then you're just like flipping it, right? Like they're always going to be spawning in like two different corners, right? But like if you have two guys hold forward and like push the other two, and then one guy like kind of anchor, then you're just gonna have them all spawning in like one corner, right? So it's like they're trapped in like one corner of the map as opposed to kind of having like a whole like 50-yard line, I guess.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Got it, got it. All right, guys, if y'all have any more questions, Zombie, thank you for the question. Space, thank you, Josh, for moderating. Arisa, thank you for the question regarding Pit. And that's basically what we got today. We got some Solitude, some question Q&As from Warlord. If anybody else has any questions, let me know. But what do you got, Warlord, to send them off with? Maybe one thing for them to think about
I mean,
off of this?
I guess the most important thing is going to be the reticle thing, because I think a lot of people don't know about it just from experience, from like coaching a lot of people. Is people don't really start thinking about like they don't people like a lot of like low onyx players and stuff are like really good at like when enemies 4 dead and you like have a little look around, see where your teammates are at. It's a bit more obvious where they're going to spawn, but like just start analyzing your own spawn when you like come off spawn. Just to kind of like paint a picture, because I've noticed a lot of people are really bad at kind of knowing what to do when they've just come off spawn. But once they've been alive for a good 40 seconds, right, they kind of know what's up. But but when they come off spawn, it's like they can just kind of insta die like a bunch of times in a row because they're not doing a good job of like analyzing their like, own spawn.
Got it, got it. All right, guys. Thank you, Warlord. Anything outside of that? Thank you for putting the time out there and giving us the information you got. Thanks, guys, for joining us. We'll post this on YouTube in the future, and see y'all later.
It's the truth that